basically took a solidified DH as our third outfielder because I don't know what the hell we're doing from here. Our remaining outfield is some combination of, and one of these players is going to start a lot of games because Giancarlo Stanton is not going to start the majority of games in the outfield, and Harrison Bader is hurt. So this guy, our top one or two guys, are going to be seeing a lot of starts in April and May. Those options are Aaron Hicks, who we all know and love to some degree, Rafael Ortega, Willie Calhoun, both of those who are non-roster invites for spring training. Then we have Estevan Florial in the minor league system. And interestingly enough, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who's found himself in a lot of outfield innings these past few days in spring training. Jake, you've been locked into spring. You're groaning now, you're grimacing. How do you feel about this whole situation?
I'm grimacing because I forgot. We just did a quick little rundown of who we were going to go through, and I completely forgot Estevan Florial was on this team, and he's played a lot this spring, so that says a lot. I'll start with him just because I mentioned his name first. He's out of options, so the Yankees need to make a very, very precise decision whether or not they're going to keep him or not. They haven't given him any real opportunities to prove himself as a starter or let alone a true everyday MLB player or like even a role player. Every time they've called him up, it feels like he's riding the bench and then goes straight back down after 2 or 3 weeks of doing so. I just don't think they have a lot of faith in him. And I think that he could potentially benefit a team, but he does strike out a lot. He's got a really good arm. He can cover the outfield pretty well. He's made some iffy plays and he's made some decent plays this spring training. He's hit the ball hard and he struck out a lot. It's kind of exactly what his profile projects as. Can't say I'm sold on him, and I think this might be a parting gift. Like the Yankees might have their last little curtain call with him. Right
Yeah, can
before
I
this.
make the decision right now for the
Yes.
Yankees?
Yeah.
Um, he didn't get the best shot, but last year he had 17 games and his 35 plate appearances. A lot of those were defensive substitutions. He hit below 100.
Yeah.
Really didn't look good. He can hit the ball with high velo, but it's a very long swing. And he had good run in spring training. He played 18 games, 41 plate appearances. He was hitting below 170.
Yeah.
And I know we shouldn't look into stats too much in spring. But from looking at eye test, he can hit the ball pretty hard. He can run into him, but he strikes out a lot. His swing is very, very long. I know he can be solid defensively. My decision is he's out of options. We DFA him now and then try to trade him somewhere. Because he has to make the team otherwise, right? Like he can't be
Yeah.
optioned
No.
down at this point. Yeah.
He would have to be agreeing to a minor league deal if he wants to stay a Yankee, essentially.
Which he
Um,
which he might do.
he could do that, but also I see it the similar way I see Miggy Andujar, except without the provenness of Miggy. Like Miggy at least had that one big season where he performed as a Yankee, and then he got the shoulder injury, and then he was out. And Estevan hasn't really had that bad of an injury history. I know he's been banged up quite a bit, but it's not the same extent as Miggy's, and he doesn't have the track record as an MLB player. So I don't know how many teams are going to be willing to take a flyer on him as a free agent. I think either way, like he would be stuck kind of signing a free agent or a minor league deal more than anything. So I think his best bet is being DFA'd and traded.
Yeah, well, I think the opportunistic advantage for Florial that probably he and his agent are considering now is that the Yankees are so thin defensively in the outfield right now.
Yeah.
Is that, Miggy Andujar was different in that he was great offensively, but you couldn't put him anywhere. Whereas
Yeah.
Florial, you can put him anywhere defensively. Like the moment, like if Oswaldo Cabrera gets hurt or Aaron Hicks gets hurt, like um, unless both Rafael Ortega and Willie Calhoun both accept minor league assignments, or like one makes the team, one accepts the minor league assignment, which I'm not sure both of them do or either of them do. I guess we'll talk about that too.
Yeah.
The door is open. Like Florial is the guy on the 40 man who comes up and can play left, center, or right. And even if he does poorly, he can get MLB time. So that can be the spin I see him in accepting a minor league assignment, even though he can't be optioned down.
Yeah. I mean, Baseball Reference has him getting 220 big league appearances, and
At
that's
bats.
significant amount. And that's then again, it's also 19% reliability. So
Yeah.
I don't know how you come up with that, but sure. Yeah, 696 projected OPS, which like, hey, not the worst. I guess that leads us into Aaron Hicks, just because he's the one with the most tenure as a Yankee. He's got the longest standing status. He's probably the most frustrating out of all of them, just because of his tumultuous career as a Yankee. Um, he's a dude who started off as a wizard in the outfield and was a wizard at getting on base. And we've just seen those numbers diminish ever since he got injured in 2018 or 2019? 2019.
Uh, 2019, yeah, because he signed the
Yeah.
deal after 2018, I think.
Yeah. I mean, he had a decent 2020 as well in the shortened season. I remember his OPS being really solid. But that's also a smaller sample size. So if you walk a lot in 60 games, you're naturally going to have a high on base percentage and OPS. Um, I just I'm not sold on him. I mean, I've watched him play a decent amount this spring training so far, and he has made adjustments to his credit. He's not doing the big one-handed swing anymore, one-handed follow through. He's got both hands on the bat, so he's a little bit more choked up. Which I do appreciate the fact that he is trying to make some changes, but at the same time, like he is, I think he has a better batting average at this very moment. Um, he's probably a little bit closer to 300. However, it hasn't been great contact for the most part. He's ran into a few that he's hit out. But it more or less felt the same as how it did at the start of last season. Remember how he had like a very hot April to start the year, but it
Yep.
wasn't really hot. It was deceivingly hot. It was like 290 average, but it was also like a bunch of flare singles. That's kind of
Yep.
more or less what I've been seeing out of him, and that doesn't excite me whatsoever. So if people point at his stats in particular, that's why you have to take all um, spring training stats with like a grain of salt. Is you're not always seeing what the contact looks like, and his batting average might improve, but I just don't see him drastically becoming a better hitter than he was last season. Um, and also he's just like he's made some nice plays to his credit today. He made a nice one where he was running in and it was like kind of a glove side back pick like that. On like a little flare decently hit ball to like shallow center. So he made a nice play there, but it seems to be those balls down the line in left field where you just can't trust him at all. Um, and like defense is supposed to be his forte. So if he's not providing you with elite defense but has a subpar bat, then what's the point of keeping him? And he is going 10-5 rights are coming up this year, right?
Yep.
So yeah, that's
Around
gonna
June or July, I believe.
yeah, that could easily play a factor. There's no way I see him. He shouldn't be starting. I'll put it plain and simple. I don't see him as a starter anymore. I hope the Yankees kind of see it the same way, but like who knows? I think he's going to end up seeing decent time if he's still on the team, but if he really underperforms, and I can see him being a DFA, the same way I see like Donaldson mid-season, if he's not performing well, then I see him good as gone or just riding the pine constantly.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Hicks, his pop is just not there where he used to be. Hicks, we were good, like a guy who can get on base a bunch, draws a lot of walks, and then can run into a homer every now and then, so pitchers pitch around him.
Yeah.
Right now, Hicks, last year Hicks got himself out except for some fluky like bloop singles. I mean, looking at his numbers last year relative to previous years, his isolated power, which is just his slugging percentage minus his batting average, was 0.096. And to put that into context, that means 3 out of 4 of his hits are singles and one of them's a double. Like not like a
Yeah.
home run would put that number a lot higher. So that means his slugging is less than 100 points higher, less than one extra base higher than if every single he were to get would be a hit. In line from his career numbers when it was 17, 18, 19, he was good. He was at a 210 isolated power. And that's where the home run effect you can see at the home run. He can find gaps here and there. Looking at StatCast data, I mean, his barrel percentage in his career was anywhere from 7.5 to 9%. Last year was 5.8%. His hard hit percentage in his good years was anywhere from 35 to 42%. Last year it was 33.1%. I mean, his expected batting average was low. His expected slugging was really low. I mean, even lower than his actual slugging. Um, no, it was a tough year for Hicks. I appreciate what he's done for the Yankees. I agree. He plain and simple shouldn't be starting. He will start. He'll take a bunch of starts. I could see a DFA option if he mutually agrees to a trade. The thing is that Hicks might hold out on a trade to get the 10 and 5 rights. Because that comes with player autonomy and you can choose where you want to be traded and different union benefits that come along with playing for 10 years, 10 and 5 being playing for 10 years in the league and 5 years with one team. He'll get that in the middle of the season. And then he'll probably, if there's a path for him to go, he and the Yankees, I think, will work on a mutually beneficial deal to see him out. And that's my path for Hicks this year. Play 60 games, start a bunch in left field, hopefully not in center. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It is what it is there. But I guess that leads into our last guy who, well, I guess we'll lump them together because they're not on the roster yet, but that would be Willie Calhoun and Ortega.
Rafael Ortega.
Rafael Ortega. Two guys that made very interesting impressions. I want to say right out the bat, they both started hitting really hot early on in the spring. And it looked like Ortega was almost sealing the deal. Like it was going to be his position. He had an OPS well over 1,000. And then over a week ago, he started to really taper off and his defense looked bad. Like in left field, he was having some awful time with the routes. And at first you could chalk it up to, oh, he's having issues with the wind. But how many times can you blame the wind if it's happening consistently? And like, I mean, he against righties throughout his career, he's been fantastic. Against lefties, he's been non-existent. So the fact that he's struggling against both right now is not going to do him any favors when he's trying to win a position. Meanwhile, Willie Calhoun, despite I don't love his body type necessarily for the outfield, I just don't know how it's going to hold up. But if he's only going to be here for a year or less than a year, I think that he can hit some nukes for us and be serviceable at best, and then, find a little bit of time at DH. I think he's the most compelling one out of all of them at this point to actually start games in left field. So it's an interesting race. I don't know. It's not as exciting as it was at the start, but I think that Calhoun's kind of got the edge right now.
So from what I've seen of these two players and the stats back it up, I mean, Rafael Ortega has been a major league average defensively at center field and pretty solid left fielder. But his hitting numbers have really waned. I mean, he had 2 seasons in the bigs. Looking at Ortega, where he had 143 games for the Marlins, he had a 57 OPS plus full run that year, playing right field and left field. For the Braves, he had 34 games and a 47 OPS plus. But in 2021, he went out there. He had an 823 OPS, which is a 121 OPS plus, playing center field at Wrigley for the Cubs. And then last year, he ran a back league average season, 95 OPS plus. But he's looked pretty bad in at the plate in the last few days of spring. I know I came in when we got him between him and Calhoun for the non-roster invites. Like you said, Calhoun, his body's okay, but his agility in the outfield, covering a lot of space in left field, which is our hole, I saw as an issue. Whereas Ortega, I know, can provide center field defensive coverage, take away some games from Judge and from Bader, and come off the bench and really mash righties. But do you think that even given this is going to be a bench spot, ideally, you think that Calhoun has tipped the tides in his favor over Ortega enough?
I think he's running away with it at this point. Could Ortega, I mean, this is the last week, which arguably is the most important week. I think this is when you make your last impressions on a team if you are trying to fight for a position.
And it's all pro talent that he's facing,
exactly,
both of them.
Yeah. So you're seeing pro pitchers the entire time. It's not just some random high A.
Pro is in major league. Everyone else is pro. I understand that. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
The show. Yeah, it's a bunch of guys that'll be there throughout the 162 game season. And I think that Calhoun right now has a stronghold on it, but who's to say that Ortega can't hit 2 homers in one game and all of a sudden change the tide for him? But from what I've seen, if you're taking the entire sample size of the spring, Willie Calhoun probably deserves it at this point.
You think that's our bench spot? So if we're looking at outfielders, um, we're going Judge, Bader, who's hurt, Hicks, Cabrera, Willie Calhoun. That's like
Yeah.
our 5 outfielders. You think Ortega gets not Ortega, you think Willie Calhoun gets DFA'd when Bader comes back?
I think someone gets DFA'd. I don't want to say who though, because it's like I think that it could be Hicks. There are so many factors that play into this at this point that like I'm still in the mindset that if we're talking later down in the season, depending on how this Brian Reynolds stuff goes down with the Pirates trying to extend him, if that falls through, like if he doesn't get extended before the start of the season, I think he's going to be on the trade block. It's inevitable that he'll be
Yeah.
available, and the
He
asking
won't
price
be
is
extended
going
before
to
the
be
start of the season.
yeah, like the last offer was like 6 million or 6 years for 76 million or something like that. That's not going to cut it. That's not even close to what he wants. So if he's available, I think the Yankees are going to go hard after him. Obviously, like they're waiting for Dominguez to come up, so they don't want to be too crazy with spending to bring in an outfielder. I think we've seen enough from Dominguez at this point to be very excited about him as a prospect, and he's very close. His bat is ready, his glove isn't. So I think that what the outfield construction looks like, there's going to be a few, like at least 2 players that are on currently that won't be there. I'll put it that way.
Any shot of running a 4-man outfield, I guess that'll bring us maybe into the infield conversation because we got 13 spots, a 5-man outfield. Oh no, we have 13 spots. We only have 11 spots
Well, we didn't
between
even talk about
infielders and
IKF.
outfielders.
Yeah, we didn't even
Yeah.
talk about IKF, who like we'll just umbrella him as a utility guy at this point, but he's going to if he somehow makes the team, he's going to be a bench player and he's going to play we'll see how much outfield. I don't trust him there yet. I don't expect him to be an amazing outfielder. He could do it. I think he's got the work ethic to be serviceable. I still think he's the most movable player on the team right now. I think that he just doesn't have a place. But also keep in mind that Oswaldo Cabrera, even though I think he's going to get starts, you think he's going to get starts, like a significant amount of starts. He's also at the end of the day a utility player. So he's going to kind of serve as that role as well. And then also DJ LeMahieu is a utility player. So you've got 2 utility players, one of them that, or 3 technically, if you include IKF. You're paying those 2, IKF and DJ, $21 million collectively. So they're going to be moving around a lot. So I don't think you need to worry too much about the util position or like the bench piece.